With the announcement of future plans for Larian Studios that did not involve an expansion or a sequel to Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of fans were left somewhat let down. However, this doesn't mean that the end of the life cycle of Baldur's Gate is anywhere near, as the game is still to receive support and major updates that are likely going to lead to an eventual release of the definitive edition, at least if the history of Larian's past titles are anything to go by. With that being said, I wanted to explore a couple of things that I believe would make a great addition to the game and help to extend beyond its already impressive prospects of longevity. So for the sake of this video, I won't be focusing on things like revamped questlines and basic quality of life changes that we are pretty much guaranteed to see in the coming months, but rather tools that would help the community eventually take over the reins and ensure that Baldur's Gate 3 will continue to thrive for years or even decades to come. Starting with the obvious number one is the impending mod support. Larian Studios has already confirmed that the official mod support is on the way and that it is going to include not only PC but also consoles. While modding the game is already possible, the lack of official support does mean that the client updates can be prone to break the mods and save files, which should no longer be the case once the official implementation is complete. This of course means that we are likely to see a cross-platform workshop, which in turn should extend the life of the game by a pretty wide margin. Number 2 is somewhat adjacent to the first one, that being an addition of a level editor and a DM mode. Even though with the level of complexity that a game of this magnitude carries with it, there are plenty of modders and artists out there who would surely be willing to learn the level design toolset in order to create new custom worlds and campaigns using Baldur's Gate 3 systems as a foundation. Of course, it would be impossible to match the level of quality that the base game brings to the table, as custom cutscenes and voice acting would be difficult to pull off for fans devoted to developing content for free, but even with an old-school dialogue box to replace those, it would likely be enough to allow fans to create their own adventures and dungeon crawls. While the chances of implementation of such tools are pretty much near 0%, it is undeniable that such feature paired with mod support would truly ensure that Baldur's Gate 3 would live on pretty much forever, as Larian Studios could pass the torch over to the community and let us carry it forward into the far future. At number 3 is the official implementation of a photo mode. Now, while on PC it is possible to get access to a fan-made photo mode, at the moment it is locked behind a paywall and the consoles are not supported, so an official version would be a fantastic addition that would allow a larger chunk of the community to jump in on the fun of virtual photography. Considering how beautiful the game is, even an added feature of a director mode that would allow to record fan-made cinematics would help to kick off even more creativity within the artistic side of the fanbase. I think it is a feature that, while perhaps not on top of the priority list at the moment, surely would be appreciated and useful to have access to. It has been mentioned by one of the developers that a photo mode is indeed on a potential to-do list, though it wasn't an entirely official confirmation of its active development, so while the chances of it being added are somewhat plausible, only time will tell whether or not it will become a reality. Now, while this list was supposed to be limited to only 3 items and not related to the storyline, I do want to throw in an unsolicited number 4, though it is not really related to the development of the game itself, but rather the future of the characters that many of us have come to fall in love with. While Larian has announced that they are moving away from the D&D brand in their future projects, thus leaving the story and characters up to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast as well as whatever game developer might potentially pick up the Baldur's Gate property in the future, most fans would likely prefer not to have these characters meddled with, as the risk of the new writers screwing them up would be quite real. However, a lot of us would still love to see more of these beloved characters, and even though Larian might not do anything with them ever again, I think there is one scenario where we could see more adventures with the gang in a way that would still be true to them and respect the source material, and that is an idea of seeing more actual plays. The cast of Baldur's Gate 3 has already made an appearance in such form during the High Rollers one-shot DM'd by Mark Hulmes, which was a great success, and with the fact that pretty much all of the cast had a great fun reprising these characters within the tabletop environment, it is only a proof that we could see them return for an occasional D&D adventure. After all, probably no one understands these characters better than the actors who portrayed them, and with a competent lead I could see it easily turn into a mini-series where every once on a blue moon the cast could get together for a one-shot and revisit these beloved characters for a non-canonical adventure. It would be also a pretty easy way for Wizards of the Coast to make some easy profit off of this IP without a huge risk of upsetting the fanbase, and by pairing with a popular show and likes of High Rollers or Critical Role, which would be a great fit for this kind of storytelling, continuing the legacy of Baldur's Gate 3 could actually have a bright future. But is it plausible for this to actually happen? To be honest, I think it might be, given the fact that it already happened once and that both the cast and the fans of the game would likely welcome such addition. Either way, it might be just wishful thinking on my end, but these are the things I would love to see come to reality. Some of them are of course more likely to do so than the others, but in a very unlikely case that all of them would materialize, I think they would ensure that Baldur's Gate 3 would keep on thriving for decades to come.